So I've been asked before about how I shoot my skate films, and I thought, why not give like a little video tutorial on how I do that? So I guess this is it.
Skateboard, cool guy zone.
You got a dang trumpet in this place? What is trumpet?
If I can remember my dingus password.
Oh, I'm riding a horse! I ride a skateboard. I'm gonna teach you all the tricks that I know, and I know all of them.
Stick around to the end of the video and I'll give you a little tip on some extra skateboarding film goodness. So generally speaking, if you've got a phone, you could just take that out and use that. That was how I did in the beginning, and I still do a lot of the time, to be honest. The phones have gotten so good that it's just, you can do anything with them now. If I had any real tips for shooting with a phone, it would be to push your phone into wide angle mode. If the camera does that, it'll make the tricks look a little bit bigger, like a fisheye lens does. Yeah, I would also shoot at the highest frame rate that you can possible on the phone. Some of them will shoot crazy slow motion, but if you are gonna do that, I would say do it in broad daylight, in the sunlight, because when you go into slow motion, even with these cameras, it needs more time to capture light, and that can be, it can become an issue. The next camera on the list I would suggest would be a GoPro. I think that's pretty obvious. They're an action camera. I'm still rocking a Black 7 from years ago, and before that I would just use, I think it was a 5 or a 4. I don't sort of subscribe to the I need the newest phone or the newest camera model that a lot of these businesses tend to push with very sort of insignificant changes from model to model. It's a little bit of a cash grab if you ask me, but I will say that GoPro, like, they do what they're meant to do, I've beaten the hell out of a bunch of mine. The only issues I'd say that I've ever really had with GoPros is that sometimes they'll overheat. I've had that happen a few times, and then other times it'll just completely freeze. But there's a quick fix to that, really. Is just pop it open, pull the battery out, pop it back in, turn it on, and it'll be fine. There's not like a, it's not the end of the world if it freezes. It's kind of a pain in the butt if you miss a trick or something like that, for sure. The settings I would use on a GoPro, I wouldn't push it to the highest standards, just because it tends to, if you're someone who goes into post-production and likes to play with your footage afterwards, like I do, I just tend to find artifacting and weird stuff happening. But the settings I do use, it's usually like the 2.7K mark, because then it'll give you the chance to push it up if you wanted to do short form content with it later on. So that's handy. I would use the log setup if you wanted to go in and color grade the footage afterwards. It'll just give you more dynamic range and space and area to move. I tend to avoid using the super wide mode, because if you push in on that afterwards, or even as is, it just becomes a bit jarring to look at. It might be cool for parkour or something like that. An extra tip for shooting with GoPros is I would avoid shooting them this way. You might think that that's like a mobile phone, but if you do that, because of the way the lens is shaped, the fisheye is in the wrong space. So it looks really bizarre when you come close to the camera and you have these really long arms or really long legs, and it's too disproportionate. The next camera on the list is the one that I've used for years and years, and it's the GH4. It's the Panasonic Lumix GH4. I'm actually shooting this video on the GH5, which is the next one up, and I think there's a GH6 now that's been out for years and years. But as I said, I don't subscribe to buying the latest model of stuff just because it has 1 or 2 extra features, or I think people get caught up in that quite a bit, or like a fear of missing out almost, that, oh no, my stuff won't look exactly like everybody else's stuff because it's not on the newest camera. And I don't know, it's not a healthy way to be creative, I don't think. If you can't the idea should come first, and then the camera will facilitate it later, and you just use whatever you have. I use the GH4, and I've got a 8mm fisheye lens on here, so it's like super bulgy. It's probably unique in the sense that it's not really made for any other sort of stuff, I guess. It was a cheap one. It's a 7 Artisan one. It's not an expensive fisheye lens. There are really expensive fisheye lenses out there. This one's just mechanical. There's no electronic parts in it or anything like that. So to use it with the camera, you do have to like manually focus in, like sort of dial it in the old school way, I guess. But that's just the way I've always done it. The reason I bought the Lumix GH4 in the very first place, like in the beginning of getting into filming, was because of the frame rates that it could produce. It does 96 frames per second at 1080, And when it came out, there just wasn't really any other cameras that were offering that. It also shoots in a cinema mode, so if you wanted to do like more creative short film stuff, you could do that. It has like a bunch of different frame rates as well. I think it does 8-bit pictures. It'll take, I mean, I could go on and on. It does a lot of stuff. It's been my best friend skateboarding for years and years. I really couldn't do without it. It's robust as hell. The scariest thing about this really is just hitting the lens. The camera I've smacked a bunch of times, and I've got a cage on it obviously, which I didn't always have. I think the trick with shooting, say on like a DSLR camera like this one, is usually the angle. I'm out there by myself shooting these videos, so I normally just have it on a tripod like this, and I'll just try and put it somewhere where I know I'm not gonna land or run into it, or I don't think anyone else is gonna run into it. The low angle helps to, you know, make the tricks look a lot bigger than they are, as well as using the fisheye. It means you can get in really close. So when you see those skate videos of filmers standing on the stairs, right in it, like, you know, they're like a foot away from the trick, they're using fisheye lenses. Whether it be like, you know, VX 1000 old Handycam ones or newer ones, all the red cameras and all the stuff that they're doing there's a fisheye for everything, really. And I just think it's cool that over the years, the phone companies have decided to like put fisheye, essentially, mods in their cameras and long lens, like this. That's a, what's that, 45 to 200. So that's a long lens. I think it's funny these days when you buy a phone that you can have a long lens, a fisheye, and then like a standard 24mm or 50mm lens as well. I think that they kind of cottoned on to what was happening there, and people just were using their phones more as well. So that's about it for part one. I wasn't gonna go too heavy into settings and stuff like that. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like me to go sort of further into like shooting in different conditions and all of that kind of thing, let me know, maybe in the comments, that would be awesome. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was kind of on the fly. I've had this idea for a long time. I am one of those guys that, like, when I watch a YouTuber, I'm always wondering like, oh, what are they filming on, or what are they doing? Like, so yeah, I just found it interesting. So I hope you guys did too. Yeah, anyway, have a good one, guys. So my extra little tip, I guess, is if you're out there filming and you're filming by yourself, one of the things you need to remember when you film your clips is that what you want to do is have the skateboard or the feet, like where the action is, in the middle of the screen. Now that might sound like pretty simple and whatnot, but I see so many clips where it's either way too close or way too far away and I don't know what's happening. So that would be my tip. Make sure that you can see what's happening in the trick, but give enough space that it's still actually, you know, a kind of a creative shot, because it's not just how cool the trick is, we want to see who did it. When you're setting up by yourself to go film yourself, make sure that you give yourself enough room so we're not just watching a video of your feet. Anyway, peace.